Hi guys, and welcome back to Pass the Move. And for today's episode, we do have as promised the game against Slovakia, and of course the second game, which is against Scotland. Now, I did mention that my assistant stupidly arranged a game 3 days before the Slovakia game, so a lot of the players are tired. I also myself, quite stupidly, now I admit, didn't cancel it. I forgot that I could actually cancel friendlies and I have to play them just because my assistant manager did. But I don't know, I assumed it wouldn't be too big of a deal. All we need really is a point from Slovakia and possibly even Scotland. So I assumed we'd get it, maybe a little bit overconfident. But either way, all we need is just to avoid defeat against Slovakia and we automatically get qualified for the World Cup in Russia, so that'd be great. And if we do win that game, there won't be any or even draw it. We won't necessarily show you the Scotland game, and we'll just skip ahead to the World Cup itself instead for the next episode. But if we do lose against Slovakia, then I will have to show you the Scotland game as well. So hold on. Both games are, of course, in Wembley, and as you can see, my assistant manager lined up some friendlies in November as well, just to keep the team going. For the lack of competitive fixtures, I suppose. But Slovenia and especially Belgium will be interesting to play. I'm not sure why my assistant loves to, arrange friendlies with teams that we already played with in our group. But either way, let's show you who made the cut for this international call-up and who didn't. So we'll start off with goalkeepers as always, and pretty straightforward. I think it's just the same as the last goalkeeping set. Butland, Forster and Hart all picked. We also did... it's kind of still straightforward. I'm not sure if there's more to say than that. Jordan Pickford hopefully will eventually step up into being that same bracket of goalkeeper. But so far, Butland, Forster and Hart really is a decent balance. Hart is a first choice 30-year-old, plenty of international experience. Forster sort of the newcomer, but he is just about the same age, so he does give Hart a bit of competition. He does always play all his Premier League games at Southampton, and he does have some. He's also always in good form as well. Butland's sort of the youngster, does play the Premier League games for Stoke, kind of decent form, but hopefully he'll step up enough in the long term to finally take over from Hart and possibly even Forster. We've also got Pickford to hopefully compete with Butland for that, but just these players aren't playing enough or just aren't in good enough form. Of course, Hart, Forster and Butland all better in terms of ability as well, and since none of them are necessarily playing poorly, it just doesn't make sense to drop any of them. So goalkeepers straightforward, and I like my goalkeepers to be straightforward decisions. In terms of my left back spot though, just still alternating Shaw's backup. So Shaw's always been selected, he's always one of the better ones. Baines just doesn't get enough game time, and Danny Rose does. He's a little bit lower in ability. I think actually when I do call him up for my B team to see whether ability has changed or not, Baines does drop about to around the same as Rose. So Rose just edges out based on the, he's played 7 Premier Leagues out of the 8 that are available. He's played a lot of Champions League games as well, and he's got an average rating of 7.24, so how can I complain anymore? Bertrand, of course, very close as well as Cresswell, but Rose gets a call up, gets the nod basically this time. In terms of the right back, Joe Ward and Klein do still take up those spots. Klein is way ahead any other right back, as you can see, 4 stars for the national team, superb rating of course. And Joe Ward, even though he's much further down, there's no one really else to compete with Klein. He's sort of just a backup player, and he's the one who's doing the best for his team, Crystal Palace. 27 years of age, still hasn't gotten a call up yet, but an international cap rather. But he has been called up in the 2 past international periods, I suppose, and he's played every single Premier League game with an average rating of 7.04, and he's managed to assist during that time as well. And with crossing of 16, kind of tough to leave him out, but yeah, he's a really good player. I want to play with him, but just Klein's too good for the team basically. And in terms of centre backs, very disappointing. It should be Smalling, Stones, Keane, Jones and Shawcross battling out. They are our best centre backs, but unfortunately all 3 of Stones, Keane and Jones are just not getting enough game time. Keane made the very terrible mistake that he always does, which is move to Arsenal, and he hasn't played a single Premier League game. Now it's still only 8 Premier League games played so far, but still not good enough. He's only played 2 for the under-23s, so considering that he's an England international, he shouldn't be playing for the under-23s of Arsenal. But he made a bad decision of leaving his team. So in that sense, Craig Dawson and Simon Francis get the call up instead. Both players incredible form for their clubs, and you know, there's a lot of other players who do have potential, but Simon Francis and Craig Dawson are the ones who've played most consistently and who've had the most consistent form as well. In terms of midfield, we do still have the preferred four of Dyer, Ali, Henderson and Lallana, but unfortunately Lallana's ability has dropped a little bit. I also would like actually to point out at this point that because it's not always necessarily that my scouts are wrong and their ability changes all the time, it's rather, or the judgment of the player's ability changes all the time, but rather that because players' abilities increase and decrease, you know, if players have potential and they're meeting it, such as Dele Alli, Dyer, Henderson, all of them should have been improving during the time that I've had them on board. The stars that they get for the national team, so for example, if Lallana is a 2, for example, and Dyer is a 4, but he used to be a 2, then this, you know, the star rating changes as well. It adjusts according to the player's ability. So Lallana he might have the same ability of before, because he is 29. It's unlikely that he drops from 4 stars to 3 in such a heavy manner, and he still is highly valued. It's just because Dyer and Ali and Henderson have gotten better that Lallana's star has dropped, but technically his ability should be the same. But anyways, because he's dropped, there's other players who can be called up to compete with him, so he should look out for his position. The likes of Wilshere, Sterling, Lingard, and we already mentioned Jones still not playing enough game time, so Drinkwater and Jonjo Shelvey are being the players who get called up instead. Carrick has dropped in terms of ability a little bit, but again, Carrick's case might be a bit different to Lallana in the sense that he is old, so his ability might actually have dropped a little bit. He's a little lucky to get called up, but he was in good form and no one else has really necessarily played. And I'll be honest with you, I have a bit of a soft spot for him, so I did call him up. But it seems unlikely that he will actually get called up for the World Cup in a couple months' time, I guess next year's time. Anyways, in terms of strikers, again, quite disappointing, but relatively a little bit more straightforward than before. So Kane, Sturridge has missed out, of course, because of his game time. Vardy, Deeney and Austin were the ones called up. Charlie Austin getting called up for possibly his first international cap, and not necessarily he'll get that cap. We'll see in just a moment's time. But yeah, players such as Rashford, let's see, Berahino's injured. Otherwise he might have been called up. Welbeck, Rooney, Ibe, all of them just really not playing enough for their teams. I told Defoe, a little bit disappointingly, he has played all the Premier League games, but just in horrible form. Average rating of 6.4, hasn't scored a single goal and just assisted just the 1. So it's kind of disappointing that the players with international experience and decent ability, even if they are playing for their teams, they just aren't performing well. That's the problem with the English players. Anyways, we played the first game, as I showed you, against Malta. It was just a 1-0 win. Kind of straightforward, but a lot of the first team players are tired now, so I just substitute them off. Kind of stupidly that I did play the first team against them, but I'm pretty sure our backup team should get a minimum of a draw against Slovakia. So we've still got decent players, Ward, Dawson, Francis, Rose, Mark Noble. Henderson keeps his place, he's match fit. Drinkwater, Shelvey will finally get some game time as well. Vardy, Austin will get his first international cap, so it will be interesting. And I think we can finally kick off against Slovakia and see whether the tactic is strong enough for a backup team to perform, or will some serious holes be exposed in our game, basically. I'm just going to double check in just a second whether the players suit the roles. I actually forgot to do that. I just sort of put the players who are fit and didn't change the roles. So the team talk should still be the same. Let's do that. Expectations are that we should win the game, and that should be, the players should know that, basically, is what I'm trying to say. Anyways, it's still alright. So I think, yeah, the players should be able to handle these roles quite well. Francis will be the ball playing defender for our team here, and Dawson's comfortable as the central defender. So I think we'll just kick off. 4-1-2-1-2 versus the Slovakia's 4-3-3. And that should make for an interesting tactical battle, and that was almost an early goal for Slovakia. But either way, this game should be an interesting game. Slovakia still do have plenty to play for. You know, they should really be trying to make that second spot their own, and maybe they'll qualify in the second. Alright, looks like we're gonna get... Yeah, great. Alright, so Slovakia down to 10 men, and that instantly means we should push up into control. That was a foul off the ball completely. I'm not really sure what that player was thinking. I guess he just got frustrated. But Shelvey does have a chance to make more out of it, but he does fail in that sense. Now Shelvey is with Newcastle. Last season he did have the ability necessary to get called up for the national team. But unfortunately for him, he was stuck at Newcastle in the Championship, so he didn't get to play because he was in the Championship. I want to stick to picking only Premier League players. It's going to be a little bit dangerous if we start going into Championship territory, even though there is good English players there, by the way, and they do play a lot of game time. It's just that we need to just try and stick to our principles of selecting only players who play for the top league in their country, basically. Whether that's England or not is a different issue entirely. And you know, these players who are in the Championship and playing well and consistently is a great thing to see, but maybe when they go to the Premier League they won't keep that same consistent form. But thankfully Shelvey's gone up with Newcastle to the Premier League, and he has been performing just as well and playing just as much. So it's great to see, basically. I just, you know, I love it when I love seeing English players perform consistently for the clubs in the Premier League and to a high level as well. It doesn't matter if they're playing for Bournemouth or City. All that matters is that they're in the Premier League and playing well. Of course, if you know a player is playing for City and another player is playing for Bournemouth, you know, they're both in good form and you know, they're both getting plenty of game time. I would have to select the City player just on the basis that they get also things like Champions League football and, you know, all these other cup competitions as well. It really when it gets to that point where there's two players of the same level playing just as well as each other, I select them on the basis of how their form has helped their team. So if City's in second, for example, and Bournemouth in 20th, it just makes sense to pick the player who's helped their team get to second rather than who's helped their team get to 20th, that kind of thing. It's not really big club bias. You know, if Stoke are second, for example, then I'll be selecting players in Stoke rather than City who are in fourth, for example. So it just kind of makes sense. But anyways, let's get back into it. It's half time and we are, you know, just about scraping by into qualifying for the World Cup with a game to spare. But I do want to see more from my team, especially considering they went a man down. So I think I'll actually tell them off. So they're fired up, they're motivated, but I need to see more without a doubt. We're at home as well, so I get to be demanding, I get to be aggressive. If we were, you know, drawing at halftime away at home, away at Slovakia, then I'm happy to say that I would be asking my team to, you know, that they can still win this, that they can push on and get the result, nothing to worry about type of thing. And it's because they're away from home that they can actually push on and they'll get happy. Austin performing horribly on his international debut, maybe a little bit nervous, but I was hoping to see more from him. And you know, advanced forward is his perfect role for him. Basically, he loves it. It's suited for him. And we've had a clear-cut chance and a half chance, but unfortunately, it just really hasn't resulted in a result, I suppose. We haven't gotten any type of performance from any of my players. I think I'll start making some substitutions. So we'll be looking to take off Austin for... Let's go with Kane. Kane move into Vardy's position. The likes of Jonjo Shelvey's tired, but he's also performed just quietly. Not a bad game, but quietly. So we'll take off Shelvey for Lallana, who's more of a first-team player. Simon Francis and Noble are also performing quietly, but they are defensive, you know, options. We're trying to look for making attacking changes. Henderson would be interesting to take him off, but I'm actually more tempted to bring on Dele Alli, who's probably going to have more of an impact than the likes of, you know, Carrick for Henderson. So let's take off Drinkwater instead, who's also on a yellow, so that's a bit of an excuse to bring him on. And there you go, we made 3 changes, which isn't ideal, but we need to make these changes. And we need a result desperately. I mean, of course, drawing is enough for me, and I'm happy with that, but I really don't want to take my chances. Slovakia are with 10 men, but they have performed kind of, you know, admirably, whatever you want to call that word. Basically, they've performed decently. It's not like they've rolled over. They've had 6 shots to R9, and they've actually managed to get 2 on target, unlike us. So what I'm saying is we can't take our foot off the gas and just qualify through the 1 point. But it looks like my team are trying to do that. So I'm going to give them a bit of a telling off again. sometimes the halftime team talk just doesn't really do it. It also is because Slovakia have completely and utterly shut down. They're still 4-3-3, but they have gone defensive, of course, and fair play to them. But my team need to stay focused. If you can get a goal here through Ali, instead he loses out, and it looks like, I thought Slovakia would be on the counter, but they don't really have anyone to counter for. Vardy, yes, my boy. And that's all we needed. That's all I was looking for. And there you go, Kane and Vardy. Linking up together. We brought on Kane. Vardy moved him into his more, his slightly preferred role in advanced forward. He can play that complete forward support role quite well, but I think he's more made for advanced forward because of his pace and whatnot. But yeah, that's what substitutions can do for you sometimes, and looks like we might actually run away with a 1-0 win. And considering how the English players tend to be complacent, I think we can be happy with that result, even though it was just scraping by. We will have to perform a lot better against the top teams in the World Cup, but it looks like we're qualified, and that's all we need. There you go, 24 points to Slovakia's 15 now, and even if Scotland win, they'll only go to 15 if they would beat us in the next game is in. And we would have with 9 points ahead of anyone below us. So we have qualified. There you go. So we won't show you the game against Scotland. Now I'll have a ton of games to get through. Actually, a ton of time really, because we have to go all the way till about June before the World Cup even starts. But I'm tempted to actually do a video where I show you the draw for the World Cup live, but I feel like that'd be a bit unnecessary, and instead I think you guys can see it all in one go. We'll just sim all the way through until the first game of the World Cup, and we'll be showing you that instead. Possibly back-to-back World Cup games. If we've won both, I think that means we qualify into the next round, so we won't show you the next. But if not, you know how it goes basically, you know how things work. And you'll see also who we drew in the World Cup as well, so that'll be interesting. It'll be very exciting, of course. 15th time that England have participated in the competition, and we've qualified with a game to spare, and really should have been 2 games to spare, because this was basically just mathematical business, I suppose. We were 6 points ahead, 11 goal difference ahead. It was very unlikely that Slovakia were ever going to challenge us for that type of business, even if they beat us. So anyways, we should be delighted and optimistic, as it says, and I'm very happy for this English team who've only lost once out of the 9 games, and of course a very a bit of a shock of a performance against Lithuania. And I'll take some of that blame because of my team talk, and you can see here they're doing poorly as well, 5th. We're a whole 15 points away from them, so that kind of puts things in perspective. But anyways, considering how other teams are not really dominating their groups as much as us, I think we can be happy, some of these top teams. But anyways, I think that should be all for today's episode. So if you did like it, then please do if you did enjoy it rather, then please do hit the like button and subscribe for more daily Football Manager 2017 content. And as always, thank you guys for watching.